So Dharma, which I mentioned previously, is the religious, social, and ethical duty that Hindus are expected to follow. And so Dharma effectively defines the role you are obligated to play in life. And it's determined by your karma, by how you lived your previous life, and defined by your caste. The caste system defines the status of individuals in society, and historically has played an enormous role in Indian culture. Traditionally, there have been thought to be four different basic castes or social classes, and these are inherited by your parents and cannot be changed. So it's you can't be born in the lowest class and then work your way up to the highest class within a single lifetime. Now, the goal for Hindus, if you're in a low class, is to live an exemplary life. Like, instead of complaining about your plight, you should do your duty, put your nose to the grindstone, work hard, and be the best bricklayer or best street cleaner that you can possibly be. And then in your next life, you'll be rewarded by being reborn in a higher caste. So as you can imagine, this led to a fairly rigid and strict social system in which people knew their place. And your caste determined your profession, what kind of employment you could have. Typically, it has a great influence on how wealthy you are. It determines who you can marry, even who your friends are, etc. Traditionally, there have been thought to be four main classes, although there are also many sort of subclasses within these groups. The Brahmins are the highest class. They were in Hindu tradition, they were priests, although nowadays they're not necessarily priests. They could be doctors, lawyers, they could be virtually anything. But historically, they were the priests, and for most of Hindu history, priests had a great deal of power and prestige, so that's why they're in the highest caste. Then the next two castes are sort of like the middle class. They can consist of warriors, officials, merchants, and farmers. Not as prestigious as the Brahmins, but still they have important roles they play in society and are entitled to some level of respect. The lowest caste is the Shudra, and these are people who are expected to serve as laborers and servants for members of the upper castes. The Shudra, however, are still better off than the untouchables, also known as the Dalit. These are people who are outside the caste system altogether, and they are, generally speaking, relegated to the worst kinds of jobs, and are essentially social outcasts, and are exploited and treated very badly. Now, officially, since India became an independent country, and its new constitution banned the caste system, and so officially the caste system has been abolished. In practice, however, it still has a significant amount of power, especially in rural areas, which are more traditional and in which people know each other and their family history, and so it's difficult to escape your past. In urban areas, however, which are becoming increasingly populated, it's more possible to be anonymous and to some degree to escape your caste and to rise above the level that at which you were born. However, even in cities, for many people, caste plays a powerful role in either enabling them to be successful or in limiting them and holding them back and preventing them from having equal opportunities. This chart summarizes the percent of people who are in the various Indian castes, and also that's on the left side of the chart. On the right side is the percent of people within that caste who make less than $100 per month, so who are living effectively in poverty. And so you see the highest percent of people living in poverty is about 13% of the Indian population. Those are the Dalits, the untouchables. The Brahmins are about 5%. They're the highest caste. And then if you look at the bottom of the chart, The other upper castes, the second and third castes, the merchants and the warriors, they consist of pretty close to half of Hindus, and about 3/4 of them live in poverty. Finally, there are some people who are outside the caste system. Those include Muslims, Buddhists, and Christians, which comprise a fairly small percent of the population, but many poor Indians and people who were born as untouchables actually have converted to Buddhism or Christianity, because both of those religions, as we'll discuss, reject the caste system. And so they see that as a way to escape this rigid social stratification and to almost as a protest against the Hindu idea that keeps them